Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gage Kratchum, right? And yeah, I'm going to be your trainer for the Android development track, intermediate to be precise. Um, yeah, so today we're going to do a bit of a recap, right? I don't want to assume, right? I don't want to actually assume that you all know these things, right? But I'll just go back and we'll do a recap, and then of course I have a task for you guys, right? So you let me know when you can see my screen. Just let me know when you can see my screen. Okay, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so yes, like I said, my name is Gage Kachom, right? So we're going to do a bit of a recap. I'm going to do a bit of a recap. So, what are we going to actually cover in today's class? We'll look at activities, layouts, views. So please, at any point that you can actually hear me, right, just call my attention to it. So we'll look at activities, layouts, views. We'll talk about Android Studio, SDK, emulator, and then GitHub, right? I know some of you will be like, okay, these things I already know them, right? But well, let's see how that goes. Actually, let's see how that goes. Okay. Moving on. So for activities, like activities represents a single screen with a UI, a user interface in your Android application, right? So each activity is a separate entity, right? And you can actually just think of it as a window that the user actually interacts with, right? So an application typically consists of multiple activities that actually work together, right? To, you know, um, form the overall user experience. So that's basically activities. These are things you've actually, worked with, right? The layouts, right? Appearance of the user interface components, right, within the activities. So, so just think of it as a container that can actually take, various objects. So layout basically, like I said, we have different types of layouts, such as your constraint layout, linear layout, relative layout, right? And each of them actually they have a way of actually arranging their views, right? But all through, we're actually not going to use linear layouts, relative layouts. We barely or almost not use them, right? All through our this code camp, right? We'll basically focus on constraint layouts because it's actually a very powerful um, layout to make use of, right? So that's what we're going to be focusing on. Okay. Now, that's basically about layers. Of course, you can see the code representation here because these things are things you've actually seen before. Okay. Now, moving on to views. Of course, views are the building blocks of the user interface in Android, right? So they represent the individual UI elements like your text views, your buttons, image views, edit text, and the likes, right? So views are actually placed inside of the word layout. They are placed inside the layout to create that, user interface that you kind of desire, right? So activities, layouts, and views they actually work together to create a functional and visually appealing UI for your Android application. So two things there: functional and visually appealing. So just because you've probably put a button here and put a button here, and probably you click on the button and it works. Yes, it could be functional, but is it visually appealing? Right? That's just something to note. So of course, as we actually progress, right, to actually explore more advanced layouts, more advanced UI components and interactions, right? So that's basically for views. Now, of course, Android Studio, as you know, is the official IDE for Android development. And when I say IDE, what I mean is integrated development environment, right? So it basically just includes everything you need to build Android applications. Actually, the current downloadable version is the Android Studio Giraffe, right? Yeah, that's the current. So you can actually update yours if you want to, right? It's up to you. But they also have there's this other version they have, I think Hedgehog, yeah, Hedgehog. That's actually another version. I don't know if it's stable yet, right? But that's also another version. But it requires an Android Grado plugin of I think 3.2 to 8.2, right? But you can just go to the Android Studio Giraffe. You can just download that or update yours to that. Well, of course, that's based on your own preference. You can decide to just stay in your chipmunk or whichever version you are on. Okay. So then we have the Android SDK. So basically, the Android SDK is just a set of tools, right, that Google provides to allow you to create Android applications. It provides emulator images that enables testing of Android applications on your virtual device. It provides command line tools, right, for tasks like building applications, APKs, right, running tests and debugging, and of course, development and debugging tools like your ADB to manage devices and emulators. So these are things, of course, you should know being in the intermediate level, right? Of course, your emulator, as you know, is just a virtual device that runs on your computer and allows you to test your Android applications, right, without actually needing to use your phone, which is your physical device, right? Now, I'm going to go to GitHub, and I this was actually intentional because there are a few things I want to point out, right? Now, of course, you know that GitHub is a platform for version control and collaborative development. You've used it before, right? And basically allows developers to store, manage, and just share their code repositories, right? But there are still a few things that I want to talk about, right? Now, one of those things is the best practices and tips, right, to actually help you, right? The best practices and what tips to help you. Now, the first one is version control. Okay, version control. Now, version control, always use version control to Git, right, and commit your code regularly. Okay, that helps you to track changes, roll back to previous versions if actually that is needed, right? And to help you collaborate with others more effectively. Now, the second best practice is to organize your repositories, right? Look, create separate repositories for different projects. I've seen some persons, just one repository, they have about 3, 4 projects inside, right? That's not really a best practice, right? So each repository should have a particular what project, right? That helps you keep them what organized. It makes it easy for you and others to actually find and contribute to specific projects. Okay. Now the third one is make meaningful commit messages. Your commit messages should be clear and concise, right? And it should describe the changes that you made. Don't just say I used to do that before, right? Or just say minor issue, um minor commit, right? Bug fix, minor bug fix, and all those stuff like that. It doesn't describe the changes that you make. So your commit message should what be clear and what concise, because it actually helps others to understand your commits easily, especially when they're actually reviewing pull requests or looking through your commit history, right? um the next one is branching strategy. So follow a branching strategy that suits your project. Okay, so you can use use feature branches for new feature, right? Bug fixes or a stable branch. So you could have a master branch, you could have a develop branch, and then of course you could have branches that are named after a feature, right? So probably you could have a branch that's called sign up, right? FT for maybe short form feature, FT sign up. Like if it's a fix, you could append it, you could have a prefix before that particular fix. Like you could just say FX or CH for chore and all those stuff like that. So you should have a branching what strategy. Okay. And then you should also use pull requests, right? So for collaborative development, or probably you're into open source projects, right? You should use pull requests to propose changes and have them reviewed by others, because pull requests actually facilitates discussion, code review, right? So you should always use what pull requests. Don't just try to, what's it called, merge your code into a particular branch, right? Create a pull request. Now, issue tracking, right? Issue tracking. you should use GitHub's issue tracking to manage tasks, bugs, and feature requests. I think I'll show us that much later, right? Because actually makes it easier to keep track of your project's progress and kind of prioritize your work. Then, of course, README and documentation, very important, right? Your project should have a README file. You should have a README file in your repository, right? It helps you to provide essential information about your project, how to build it, any dependencies and stuff like that. So that's very, very, very important. Now, use GitHub Actions, or what I call CI/CD, that is continuous integration and continuous development. You can integrate these things, right? They are basically just is a system to automate tasks like building, testing, and deploying your Android application. I may actually introduce us to this. I should actually have maybe within the course of our project, or maybe when we get to the project phase, we'll definitely make use of this, right? Of course, code review, participate in code reviews for pull requests. When you create a pull request, you can actually prompt someone to actually make that view that, right? So also participate in code reviews, even if it's not your pull request. It actually helps you, right? It actually helps you to because you can also learn and help the other person improve their code quality. And well, this other one, using of git ignore, right? Create a git ignore file in your repository to exclude unnecessary files, right, from being committed to your version control. So this is just, like I said, these are just best practices and tips. And then of course, secure your repository, very important, right? Secure repositories with API keys or passwords, or you use environment variables or configuration files, right? Anything at all that will avoid committing sensitive data to your repository. So you should secure your what repository, right? That's just a few best practices for you. Okay, like I said, this class is more. It's going to be very short. It's just a recap, right? Just a recap, and then we'll get into the major thing in our next class. Now, for the task that I'm going to give you, right? Of course, you're going to do a task. I know you may be surprised, but of course, that is it. I'm going to give you a task, and this is going to build into a lot of what we're going to do, right? They'll be hinged on this task a lot. We'll still build some other applications in the process of learning, right? Especially in our next class. But this is going to be, something we're going to build up as we go, and also apply certain things that's going to be taught in this application or on this application. So your task before the next class, right, is to build a notebook application UI. Like I said, UI. Okay, just the UI. I'm not expecting you to build a fully functional stuff. No, just the UI, right? Of course, you should have the ability to add notes, delete notes using swipe to delete, edit notes, see list of notes in a staggered grid, right? Share notes, save a note. Okay, so save note. I think there's a typo there. Then I go online and check for the spectrum palette dependency and add that. Okay, you add that to, so it's going to be like a bottom sheet. You can see this second image here. So when I click on this, it brings up a bottom sheet with the what's called is a color palette actually. So use that to probably just change the theme of the notes, right? You can have an about us page, right? And then set up MVVM and room database, just a setup. You're not actually putting any major code, just a setup. Set up your MVVM structure, your view models and the like, your repository, set up room database, set up your DAO, right? Of course, there will be a function to add notes, delete a note, save a note. We'll do all those things, right? We'll code them out. But I just want you to set up the structure of these things. So this is just a basic UI example that I'm giving to you. Just so this is basically what I want you to do. It's nothing too difficult, just something simple. So this is the list. So this is going to be the fragment. Of course, it's going to be hosted in an activity. So this is a fragment that shows you the list. It has a search functionality to be able to search for a note, right? This is to add a note, and then of course, this to edit a note, right? So when you click on one of these, right, it takes you to this screen, right, to actually add to edit a note, right? Even add a note will take you here too, right? You can actually see this edit on text. I'll share this slide with us, and then you can put a note title, put the note. So of course, if you click on this, right? It will just pass in whatever data you have here for you to be able to edit it. So we're using one screen to add and to edit a note, right? Of course, you have the save icon here and then the back button there and stuff and all those stuff. So that's basically what you're going to do for me before the next class. Of course, you're intermediate guys, so even I could have even said tomorrow, Seth, right? I could have just said tomorrow. You guys can actually pull that through or pull that off rather. So that's basically that. If you have questions, I'll just take them quickly and then we'll call it timeout. Like I said, this was just a recap. The major thing I want you to do is this task, just to prep us for what we're going to be doing, right? But I just felt that I needed to talk about a few things. In the next class, we'll take a deep dive into constraint layouts, a few things that you need to know about constraint layouts, the things that some things that you have not used before, and we're going to use them in your design, right? In fact, we're going to use them in building out every application that we're going to be working with, right? Questions, and then we'll call it timeout. Okay, so if there are no questions, right? Okay, I think we'll just call it a day. So thank you very much. I'm going to the video, right, is going to be available before the end of today on YouTube. Of course, I'm just going to make some minor touches, right? But that's basically that. Thank you very much. We're going to meet on the chat on Discord, right? You can. I'm going to also drop the screenshot of the application, right? The application design for you to start working on. But of course, you've seen it, so you can actually get right to it. So thank you very much. But I'll drop it as a task, so you guys actually have a step-by-step process. So thank you very much. I'm going to see you in the next class.